this is the time of year when you want to get some color in your landscape for fall and winter. And what better choices do we have than the ranges of purples and blues, among them pansies, ornamental cabbage, and kale. And we're planting some of that today out in our studio garden, and I just wanted to give you a few cultural tips. First of all, these could be grown in semi-shade or full sun, either one, and they'll do pretty well. Although with pansies you'll get shorter, perkier, thicker growth if they are out in full sun. With the ornamental cabbage and kale, they do get pretty large, but it still looks better if you will mass them together in large groups. And you might look down the row here, all the way back to where Brenda is planting. We have groups of purple ornamental cabbage, then we have some green ornamental cabbage back here, fronted by some ornamental kale, then back behind another triple cluster of the ornamental cabbage. Same goes for pansies. If you're going to have good color impact in the landscape, it's a good idea to have large groups of a single color. And we have three colors of pansies out here today. We have crown azure, crown white, and then the majestic blue giants. And what we want to do, instead of alternating one plant of each at a time, we have little clusters or masses of color. Now, in getting the soil ready for these, as with any flower bed, you want to make sure when you pull out your summertime color that you get all the old growth, plant growth out. We've gone over this with a potato fork and spaded it up nice and loosely. We have not added any fertilizer where the cabbage and kale is going to go, and the reason for that is that they don't benefit from heavy fertilization. If you fertilize too much and the soil's too rich, you'll get a lot of leaf growth this fall while the weather's still warm, and you may have too much of a green appearance. And so you don't want to stimulate their growth too much, but just place them down in the soil. And as we mentioned before on Oklahoma Gardening, quite a bit of our soils are already enriched out here because we've added so much fertilizer over the years. With kale and cabbage, you also want to watch out for loopers. And the characteristic holes here tell me that the greenhouse where these were grown, they had some early season looper damage. Then look at the new growth. It's been gotten under control pretty well, and now that these are being planted out in the garden, we want to make sure that we also keep that growth in check. And the way to do that is to routinely either dust them with BT products such as Dipel or Javelin. You could also buy the liquid form if you're concerned about the aesthetic appearance of the dust on there. But that's a very effective caterpillar control on these plants, and you certainly want to stay ahead of it. Now, I'm not going to trim those leaves off because they're still manufacturing food for the plant, so I'll leave that in place. Fortunately, the pansies don't have very many pests, but they do benefit from some supplemental feeding. And what a lot of home gardeners like to do is mix a slow release fertilizer into the soil upon planting. Choose one that is about a 6 to 9 month formula, and that way you'll get plenty of growth out of it. When you're buying pansies, try to get the 6-packs that have a fairly large container. That way you'll end up with a nice healthy plant. And when you're buying them in the nursery, make sure that they have a nice white root system and are in pretty good shape before planting. As I mentioned, we want to stagger these along here in clusters, and we'll set up an irrigation system on these when we're done so they get plenty of moisture this fall, because they do like plenty of rainfall. Well, not only is this a planting for fall, but it's also my last planting here at the studio garden on Oklahoma Gardening. In fact, this is my last segment to shoot on the show. You all might remember last year I came on the show as interim host and have enjoyed this past year tremendously. During that time, we've been happy to find a new host for the show, and that's Brenda Simons. And a lot of you already know Brenda. Brenda's been on the show with us off and on throughout the year, and we're really glad to have you here.
Well, Sue, I'm really glad to be here. I'm excited about being a host.
Well, good. Well, a lot of viewers get to where they feel like they just know the host inside and out, and you might want to let folks know a little bit about you and where you're from.
Well, I grew up in Oklahoma. I was raised in Medford, and my family still farms up there. But I got my degree from OSU, and I went out west to Idaho to work for the University of Idaho. And last year, about this time, I was just visiting in town, and I stopped by and to see if there were any jobs around, and lo and behold, there were some fill-in work out here, and so I got the experience.
Yeah, that worked out really well. And then when the host position opened up, Brenda applied, and we are so tickled to have you here, and I'm glad to have you back.
Well, I'm glad to be here. And Sue, I bet all the viewers want to know that you're not going to give up horticulture. What are you going to do?
I'm a lifer, as they say. That's right. I'll be going back to my regular extension duties in Tulsa County, working with commercial growers, and have enjoyed that work over the years and pretty anxious to get back to it.
Well, we wish you luck, Sue.
Great, Brenda. I've enjoyed being here and wish you well with the show.
Well, thanks. And I'm glad to be the new host of Oklahoma Gardening. So tune in next week and join me on Oklahoma Gardening.
We hope you enjoyed this video. It's part of our OK Gardening Classics YouTube channel. You can also find more recent videos on our Oklahoma Gardening YouTube channel. And join us on social media for great gardening tips, photos, and discussion.